So be it, Jedi.
What's going on, guys? Back in another video. The other day I posted a poll in the community page and I asked which film is better out of The Phantom Menace or Attack of the Clones. Now I think it's pretty consistently agreed upon that out of the prequel films, which are a mixed bag, that Revenge of the Sith is the greatest of the three, in my opinion, the greatest Star Wars film ever, but that's a biased opinion. The reason I chose these two is because they're pretty much always considered to be the weaker of the three films. So I wanted to know what people thought of them compared to each other. And as you can see, there were 12 votes, which thank you everyone who voted if you're watching this. And yeah, it's pretty close. I mean, that's kind of how I would rate it. I think they're both objectively bad films, but we love them because they're Star Wars, right? Now, each has their own elements which make them good and or bad. And jump right into it, we'll get started with The Phantom Menace. The good things and the bad things, for my opinion. Obviously, the good things are it had been 16 years since a Star Wars film, so the hype for this movie was like bar none. And I think people that went to see it when it came out in theaters, which I was like 3 years old when it came out, I think they were pretty disappointed. So with The Phantom Menace, we have a lot of good things that are new to the table. That being a younger Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon, who is a fan favorite, which at the time didn't make a whole lot of sense. We see the Jedi in their prime. We see a younger Yoda. We see the machinations of Palpatine and how he's starting to pull the strings to rise up to power. We have Darth Maul, who is arguably one of the coolest looking villains in cinema history ever, and ended up being one of the most badass villains due to his story being continued in the Clone Wars. So it has all those things going for it. I mean, it's vastly different than what we saw with the original trilogy. I think all the prequel films are. I don't know why they feel so different compared to the original trilogy. I think mostly that is because George was just pushing the envelope in terms of computer animation, all those things. And at this point in time, he was George Lucas. He was the dude that made Star Wars, and nobody really said, should we really do that? Is that really a good idea? They kind of just accepted it because of who he was. But then there's also the negatives. Jar Jar Binks, for one. I personally never had a problem with him, but I was a kid. I think a lot of adults probably hated him, and that's understandable. I really didn't care for Jake Lloyd's acting as Anakin. Now, that sounds kind of silly because people kind of shit on Hayden Christensen for his acting as Anakin. Really more so in Attack of the Clones, but we'll get there. The pacing is just off. It's just, it's flawed. But as I said before, we love it because it's the prequels, and really due to the dumpster fire that was the sequels has kind of brought our appreciation up for the prequels. Moving off to Attack of the Clones. This is a very different film from that of which we saw with The Phantom Menace in terms of tone, special effects, the way it looks. It just feels much more modern. The good things, I think we can all agree Natalie Portman as Padme is a good thing. The clones, it was awesome seeing the clones introduced, Jango Fett, how all those things played out. Now I know people that had no idea what the Clone Wars were when they were first talked about in the early films, probably didn't think this was it, and we're left with the conclusion that the Clone Wars have begun. So automatically they jump-started the Clone Wars multimedia project, which lasted until roughly 2008 when they started the Clone Wars, but that's another story. I feel as though this is probably the movie that I watched the most as a kid, just because, I don't know, it was on DVD and I loved it and I just watched it all the time. So this one is very nostalgic. I would say I probably enjoyed this one more than The Phantom Menace. I'd say the good to bad ratio is pretty 50-50 with this film. Moving off into the bad, we have the glaring thing in which people don't like about it, and that would be the dialogue and the kind of forced love relationship between Anakin and Padme, which, yeah, it's not very smooth at all. Hayden Christensen's acting is very criticized in this film. The pacing and plot just seem all over the place. It seems like 1 minute you're here, 1 minute you're there. There really isn't a cohesive plot. The villain, Count Dooku, isn't really introduced until like 3/4 of the way through the film, which in itself is a travesty. But overall, as I said, I enjoy both these films, and I think a lot of us do too. I think both these films are pretty bad. I think we can all agree on that, but they're good because they're nostalgic for me personally, and I think for a lot of us. We love them because they are George Lucas's Star Wars, and they, for better or for worse, continue the story in which he was trying to tell. You can hate him or you can love him, but you can't deny that they tell a cohesive story. Anyway, guys, that's it. If you're new here, please consider subscribing. And if you feel like just giving out to charity, leave a like and a comment. And if you do comment, let me know which one of these movies you like more. Let me know which one of these movies is the worst of the two. If you don't like them at all, totally agree, because they're kind of hard to rewatch. That's it, guys. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, check out more videos, and we'll see you in the next one.